Okay, let's start this. Hey, hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending our first annual board meeting. We hope to make this as interactive as possible. In the annual board meeting today, we would like to discuss about global minimums achievements this year, our vision for the future, and how you can get involved with global minimums activities. And we also would like to gain some of your questions as well to be able to pose those questions to our board members. My name is Ellie Suzuki. I am the COO of Global Minimum. Here with me I have 6 panelists, including 4 board members, David, Jamie, Desmond, and Grant, and we have 2 directors, Jacob and Ariam. The way we're going to structure this meeting is that it will take place in the form of a panel discussion, and we'll leave the last 15 minutes to 20 minutes or so for Q&A. And if you can, please type your questions on the comment in front of you. And this board meeting will be recorded on Hangout on Air, so you'll be able to see it afterwards. So I'm going to pose a couple of questions in the beginning. The first question that I wanted to pose is, what is the issue and the need that Global Minimum is addressing? What solutions does GMin offer, and how does it uniquely address the problem that you're trying to address? Desmond, do you want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. First of all, hi everyone. I'm glad you all could make it. So my name is Desmond, as Ellie mentioned, and I am a board member. But more importantly, specifically to that question, what are some of the issues that GMin is addressing and the solutions that it provides? We've approached it in a few different ways. So before I actually go into depth about all that we're doing, and I think a few other members might jump in there, I want to just to kind of set the stage of what's going on. So in a lot of developing countries, a lot of places where we're working right now, we've realized that a lot of NGOs are constantly going in and changing things and almost giving answers to questions that may have never even been posed. That's one element. So as an organization as a whole, what we want to do is be an opportunity platform to transform the mindset of youth globally to solve challenges. So I've been kind of running around. So if that's what we're trying to do, looking into the separate environments, one, it's important to note that a lot of NGOs, typically they identify a problem that an external organization has deemed to be important, and they figure out solutions that might be culturally relevant, try to solve the problem, pass it off. Sometimes they stay around, sometimes they head out. What we're doing in itself is just approaching different countries, approaching different regions, challenging people to figure out what their problems are, what their issues are, what they've identified as challenges in their relative community. And then the most important part is empowering them to come up with solutions. We're not giving solutions, but we're empowering. We're creating a platform where people feel as if they could solve their local challenges. So in all of that, what we're doing, we're trying to improve this idea of self-efficacy, really understanding themselves and knowing that they themselves can tackle the problems around them. So one of the issues we're trying to approach is low self-efficacy. And this isn't just in developing countries, this is across the board, so it's very relevant to everyone. Secondly, as I was mentioning, there are a lot of these NGOs that come in and try to make an impact in different communities, but we're trying to lessen the dependency on aid by empowering youth and a generation of doers, people who want to go and change the community around them. Now, throughout this, I've mentioned youth a few times. Why youth? It's really important because the youth are the upcoming generation. They're the minds they're very malleable at this point, and they're the ones that will be changing what's to come in the next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, and beyond. So we're really focusing on youth and providing this platform for youth to really thrive in itself. So what do? We have a few different problems, or a few different projects that we're working on, and it's been great seeing us grow not only horizontally but vertically. So we have in challenges, which is essentially going around to these different countries or regions and challenging kids to figure out what are their local challenges, and then empowering them to find solutions for those, providing funding and mentorship along the way. That's it in a nutshell. But we're also growing. We have a project called InLabs that we're starting, which is actually labs themselves where people could go to, make to learn and learn to make, actually engage in different equipment and start being creative in that sense of becoming a maker and a doer. We also have various other programs, which I'm sure will be mentioned a little later, but we're just trying to create this culture of innovation and create an organization where youth feel empowered to go out and make change in their community, and also members within GMin feel comfortable and empowered and able to help those others in their community. So that kind of addresses some of the questions that you posed. Ellie, would you say that wraps up your questions for the most part?
Thank you, Desmond. Yep. So in a sense, Global Minimum tries to address the issue of low self-efficacy and dependency on aid. And some of the programs that you mentioned are in Challenge and in Labs. And that brings me to the next question. How do some of those programs help the youth that you serve? Can you give us some examples of or success stories from this year that reflects how you empower youth in the way that Desmond described? Jacob or Grant, do you want to take that on?
Yeah, sure. Jacob, you go first with Kenya.
Thank you very much. So my name is Jacob, and I'm one of the founders of GMin and also the founder of Innovate Kenya. And now I'm the new director of Innovate Challenges. Thank you so much, Ellie, and thanks for the great introduction, Desmond. I want to take some time to talk about 3 of our different success stories we had this year. In line of what Desmond said, it was great, 3 amazing projects carried out by the youth on the ground. They figured out what their problems were, then defined innovative solutions to them, and then they actually executed those projects. One of them was an example from Kenya, where often families are put into debt when one of their loved ones passed away. It can be the father dying or the mother dying, and it's especially tragic when it's one of the breadwinners for the family, mother or father, and the rest of the family is then put in debt because they have to buy a very, very expensive coffin to afford the funerals. So these kids thought, this is not fair. It's not fair that we or other youths have to suffer because we have to pay off the debt of someone who's not there to make any money in the long run. So they decided to innovate and build a coffin out of locally available material, bamboo, which is also much more environmentally sustainable. Normal coffins are built out of hardwood that causes deforestation. But also these kids also figured out that it's not only the cheaper coffin that will solve the problem. It's also a societal thing. It's the problem that there's a lot of pride in sending your loved ones away nicely from this world. So they came up with a very innovative commitment plan, sort of like a will, saying where they asked people before they died to sign it, saying, "I pledge to burn a bamboo coffin." So in combination with having a very, very cheap coffin, they found a way to both solve deforestation, but also change the mindset about how people approach funerals, so they can hopefully get to a point where people will not be in debt anymore. So super innovative. They made their first coffin, and they're now trying to scale and produce this coffin all over the country and actually change the whole mindset. A second exciting example, that was one of the examples from Innovate Kenya, and we're very hopeful for them going forward, was a group of boys that wanted to find a way to help fight deforestation, specifically focus on household burning, household cooking. Almost 90% of all households use charcoal to cook in Kenya, and charcoal not only causes deforestation, it's made by taking wood and chopping it down and then burning it, but also it's very, very polluting for the indoor environment. If you cook a lot, you get respiratory tract illnesses and diseases, and it's generally very, very bad. And these boys saw a lot of agricultural waste material that's just lying around, and they thought, isn't there not a way we could recycle this material and turn this into something useful? So they took sugarcane leftovers and other agricultural waste materials and made charcoal out of them, and actually made them in a way so they pollute less and they last longer and they're cheaper to produce and doesn't cause deforestation. They tested it at the National Laboratory for Science in Kenya, and now they have a big business plan. They want to scale this and sell it and transform how people use these charcoals to help improve the indoor environment and cut down deforestation. So that was the second very, very exciting one, and we're also very hopeful. Finally, I want to take your attention to Sierra Leone, where a group of kids from Prince of Wales want to build a windmill from scratch because they have a physics lab, but often it runs out of power, and they thought, why do we need to wait for the government or NGOs or someone else to come in and give us power? We can build our own windmill. So right now they're in the process of building a windmill so they can power this physics lab and still do continue to make and do great science things. It's very, 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 very exciting things. But I think I'll hand over the word to Grant, and maybe he can share some exciting stories from South Africa.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jacob. Yeah, so just going to share two quick stories from South Africa. Two of my favorite projects. One's the university high school mix. This group of students realized that there's a gap between the kids in the township and their ambitions to get to university, just cultural and in terms of their resources. And so they developed this network. They've proposed to develop a network using this a social network called Mixit, which is a network developed in South Africa already and very popular among the township youth because it's available on feature phones. You don't need a smartphone to be part of this network. And anyway, they've developed a really smart proposal, and we've helped them by putting them in touch with this app lab at Mixit and the University of Cape Town Information Technology Department. And the real ambition is to study computer science at the university. So that link to the university has been really helpful for them. And one of them was able to fly to New York to represent Innovate the Cape at the Rockefeller Next Century Innovation Award, which was really cool. So those are just some of the ways that we've been helping our students. Another team with a very exciting idea is a team in the township of Cape, in Khayelitsha Township. 17-year-old kid developed a way of recycling polystyrene or styrofoam with orange peels by extracting an essence or essential oil called limonene from the citrus fruit peels. He found that he could then dissolve polystyrene, and by heating it up and adding certain components, he could produce recyclable materials. So a plastic and some of the as yet unidentified carbon substance that smells like diesel, which we are hoping to test to find it and maybe use as a biofuel. But and we've helped them by putting them in touch with chemists at Oxford University and the University of Cape Town. Those are PhD students, and we're also helping them with the intellectual property because this is potentially a commercially viable idea. And we have 5 other exciting ideas, but I'm going to leave it there for now.
Yeah.
So, Ellie.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jacob and Grant, for actual very powerful examples, both from Cape Town as well as Kenya and Sierra Leone. I know early on Desmond mentioned about future plans for GMin, and I had a question about how GMin is best positioned to, or first of all, what are the future plans? What are we looking at for 2014, and how is GMin best positioned to achieve kind of those visions and goals for 2014? I want to ask Ariam, who is the Director of Research and New Initiatives, do you mind taking a stab at that question?
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to answer that question. So, hi everyone. Nice to meet you. So I guess I want to start with pointing out that a lot of powerful lessons learned have come out from our innovation challenges and led us to believe that we are in a position to encourage youth to develop critical thinking skills and we can entrepreneurial problem solver mentality. And what I mean by that is the winners of our challenges have definitely demonstrated that they have those skills, but other youth need support to actually develop those critical thinking skills, very much sort of influenced by the design process. And as we've read applications from all our challenges, we noticed that it was difficult for some youth to articulate their ideas and write concrete proposals. Some youth were able to identify the challenges in their communities, but unable to come up with concrete solutions, but they could identify the problem. Other youth were able to come up with solutions, but they were unable to really sort of step-by-step put together an implementation plan. So as an organization, GMin has really, we've sort of tasked ourselves with thinking about how can we help youth develop the skills that they need to become successful problem solvers so that they can actually take on the challenges in their communities. And so what's come out of this thinking is we've partnered with the Clinton Global Initiative to create our innovation labs. And they're sort of, as Desmond said, maker spaces in secondary schools. And we're starting this initiative in Sierra Leone in 3 secondary schools and 1 community center. And these innovation labs are physical spaces where there will be lots of different tools. There will be some very loose curriculum that's focused on critical thinking and design thinking. But then we'll also have sort of like a project library or resource book where youth and educators can pull out activities related to the issue areas or problem areas that matter to them, whether that's related to energy or agriculture or water. And so we sort of come up with these topics just based on looking at our applications and seeing what kind of problems youth feel are in their communities and have actually tried to take on through their proposals. So these are safe spaces for learning, for making. Youth should be able to feel like they can fail and not be judged in the process. And so we're really trying to promote a maker ethos, helping youth sort of tinker, learn design skills, but also go out into their communities, ask questions, and really guide them through the design process. And so that's our sort of new initiative, Innovation Labs. And in general, GMin's goal over the next couple of years is to create a couple of different products that scaffold and that can also scale, but that also offer multiple learning pathways for youth, which they can explore freely. Our youth have demonstrated that they have extraordinary talent, and we also want to make sure that we find ways of recognizing their achievements and attainment of new skills. So that'll definitely be a new initiative for us. You know, you've gone out, you've taken on a challenge in your community, but sometimes the skills that you're attaining might not be as visible to you. So how can we help them recognize you're attaining these skills, you're moving forward in this direction, sort of help them think about planning for their future in a way. And some global initiatives are badging, for example. That's something that we're very interested in. And sort of getting youth online as well so that they can be sort of part of the global community of makers. So those are some of the programs and projects that we're thinking about moving forward.
Thank you, Ariam.
Sure.
Thank you so for introducing us to InLabs as well as other exciting projects that we're looking at in 2014 and beyond. Now I just wanted to kind of take a step back and look at what are some of the milestones or highlights that, or any other milestones or highlights that we might have missed out this year. A lot has happened in 2013, and it would be wonderful if Jamie, if you can talk to us a little bit about what are some of the milestones that we hit this year.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for hosting this, Ellie. It's great to be here. So I think a lot has really happened in 2013. We've really sort of built up this organizational capacity that we didn't have in the past, and I think now we're really able to pack a powerful punch in 2014. For example, we're now a member of the Clinton Global Initiative. We recently, early in December actually, were awarded, we're given an award from the Rockefeller Foundation. We have a lot of other great organizations supporting us as well, such as Google and Autodesk, and just a wide range of different companies and organizations that are really very supportive of our work. And of course we have the 3 new directors that are also in this hangout, Ellie, Ariam, and Jacob. And we also have this growing base of volunteers, and it's really great to see how we can get everyone really engaged here in 2014, because I think we're really ready to take things to the next level, and that's going to be very interesting with all these projects and expansions that we've planned, as we've also heard earlier in this talk. So in terms of sort of how we've actually come here, I think maybe that's also interesting, because it started out with Jacob and David sitting and talking in their room, and then Jacob sent me an email, and so from the very beginning we've actually been this virtual distributed organization. So I think that's definitely interesting to think of. How do you actually begin and manage an organization when you have no headquarters, there's no office, you're spread across multiple countries, even continents, and multiple time zones, and how do you do that? And obviously that's something that takes discipline. Nothing is really like pushing an individual to do the work besides their own discipline, because it's not like they're sitting next to somebody who they're talking to. So I think that it takes a lot of personal discipline, but what kind of happens is that you open up the talent pool to everybody in the world with an internet connection, as opposed to if you're like located in one specific area, then all the talent sort of have to gather in that area. But when you're sort of this virtual distributed organization, you actually are able to bring in talent from all over the world, which means you can get the best possible talent regardless of their location, and they can go in and do great work. And so I think that's something that's very interesting going forward, and it's kind of fascinating to see how we've been able to grow the organization from those early days to where we're now with all our directors and partners and volunteers, and it's still all happening virtually. We don't have no office, so there is zero overhead, and people work in their own schedule, so they sort of are able to always contribute, and that's something to keep in mind. But of course, the few times that we are able to meet up, such as earlier in December, when a lot of the board members as well as the directors had a chance to meet up, that's very valuable, of course, still. But I think it becomes even more valuable when you actually don't meet up, when that's a scarcity, that you actually are able to meet in person. Then everybody comes together and are really focused in those meetings, and so we can sit on hours and hours in meetings and still be productive, which is maybe not the case if you went to an office every day and had to sit in our 8-hour meetings all day. The last hours would probably not be that productive. But when you know that you probably won't have this opportunity again, this chance again to speak with these people in person for another 6 months, maybe even a year, then you definitely come to those meetings with a different level of preparation and a different level of energy. And so it's very, very valuable to still have those meetups, but I think the value also in large part comes from the scarcity in that. So I think those are a few of the things I wanted to highlight. I don't know if you have any follow-up questions, Ellie, or want to throw questions to others. I think you're muted, Ellie.
Sorry about that. So at this point, thank you, Jamie. So at this point, I want to open up the floor to our audiences. I believe on the left-hand side, you will see a Q&A box. Jamie, would you mind enabling that? And
yes.
While we welcome new Q&As, I just wanted to pose one question in the meantime. So, GMin...
So, Ellie, sorry for interrupting you here. Mm-hmm. So, it says that the feature is disabled. I'm not quite sure about this, but people can just type on the event page. They can just type in the questions, and we'll just read them from there, because that's
Sounds
live
good.
as well.
Perfect. So, please go to our Global Events page and post us any questions that you might have about Global Minimum. And in the meantime, the follow-up question that I have is that Global Minimum, and I myself started as a volunteer of Global Minimum, but it's from the early stages, it's been supported by volunteers over the last, and that's how kind of Global Minimum has been running. And I just wanted to hear what is it like to kind of come on board. Grant, I wanted to actually pose this question to you. You started as a volunteer in Sierra Leone. You went to Innovate the Cape to launch Innovate the Cape, and now you're a board member. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience? What is the work culture? What is the team culture of Global Minimum for prospective volunteers?
Okay. Yes. Well, so I got involved when I was living in Sierra Leone, and David approached me and said that hey, I have this idea called Innovate Salone. Do you want to get involved? And I said yes. I was working a full-time job at the time for Innovations for Poverty Action, an economic research group. So I was working quite. I was working about between 40 and 50-hour weeks at the time. But the nature of the GMin team, they drag you in with the enthusiasm to work there in that extra gap. And I started working in Innovate the Cape. Join the virtual office space. I mean, as Jamie mentioned earlier, we had an office, but I only met Jamie for the first time about 2 weeks ago. But I've been working for him since the end of 2011. So, but got on board, and the main reason why I stuck around though is through the interaction I've had with the students of Innovate Salone and Innovate the Cape. So, listening to the students just voicing their motivation and drive to improve their communities themselves, rather than waiting for anyone else to do it for them. And that's really what we need in Africa. I come from South Africa myself, and so when I moved back to Cape Town, I said I wanted to start Innovate the Cape, which I founded at the beginning of this year, and it's just been up from there. After Innovate the Cape, and I'm now a member on the GMin board, and I plan to keep involved. So to give advice to volunteers, the only way to get your feet wet is to jump in. So just find us wherever you are in the world. You don't need to be in Boston or in Sierra Leone to do it. We have volunteers working for us from Norway and arbitrary places throughout the world. So you just get on board, help people write. You can write grant proposals. You can write. You can help us write our materials. There's always work to do, and it's always rewarding.
Thanks, Grant. I'm just going to check on the Google Events page if there are any questions. Again, I just want to remind everyone in the audience that you can ask any questions that you would like on the Google's event page. So as I don't see any questions, I'm going to continue asking follow-up questions. So I guess my next question is about your reach and impact. I would love to hear about, just in terms of numbers, how many students, for example, applied to InChallenge this year, how many finalists did you work with in 2013, and what does the impact look like going forward? Jacob, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ellie. I think I'll start by putting things a bit into perspective and taking ourselves back to 2012, where we had 83 applications. And we did pretty well in 2013. We have more than 270 applications from our 3 different challenges. So quite a good growth there, more than tripled our numbers. And I have to say that also applications here were a lot better. One thing is to get a lot of applications, but you also have to ensure the quality is really up there, and really ensure that these youths have had a chance to think strongly about what are the best solutions to their problems. Then we had 22 finalists this year. From Sierra Leone and Cape Town, and we had 5 from Sierra Leone, 10 from Kenya, and 7 from Cape Town. And we engaged directly with more than 1,100 students. The way it works in GMin is that you cannot apply on your own. You have to apply in a team of 3 to 5 people, and most teams are 5 people. So if we add all the people that have applied, we've actually actively directly engaged with more than 1,100 people this year. Again, up 4 times from last year, which is super exciting. So a lot of impact. A lot of these teams are continuing to develop and innovate and scale and really tinker about how to improve their ideas more. Very, very inspirational. And we've got big plans for next year as well. We're planning to scale ourselves, not only the innovators innovate, but also
I think we lost Jacob there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we lost him. But I guess I could continue with Jacob's. Well, Jacob's back.
Yeah. So the one thing Jamie didn't mention is sometimes it's difficult when you sit all the way around the world and have different internet connections to actually all keep on. I'll continue. We have plans of expanding. Not only do we want to increase our goals for the existing Innovate challenges, we want to have this year the goal for Innovate Kenya alone is 500 applications. and 50 finalists, so quite ambitious. But we're also looking to expand to other countries, both in Africa and Latin America, as well as cities in North America. They're still in initial stages, but I'm really, really excited and hopeful, and tune in a year's time, and you'll definitely be impressed with our work.
Thanks, Jacob. I guess the follow-up question that I have is, maybe this is to you, David. What are other indirect beneficiaries of your program besides the students themselves?
Well, thanks for the question, and maybe actually that is related to a question that somebody from the events page has asked, Melania, which is, how is GMin working to engage youth once they have already gone through the challenge? Is there any form of alumni network and follow-up opportunities? So this is in many ways related to how we engage with the broader community. So when it comes down to creative thinking, when it comes down to self-efficacy, these objectives that Desmond had mentioned, they are very much so cultural. And the people who can think about the problem, who can say, I know how to fix that problem, who can say, I know how to use these tools that are around and repurpose these tools to solve a specific problem, those are creative people. Those are people who we need in any community and in any society. So by, first of all, just looking at the young people who are doing something, all their peers want to be like them. Now, it's the cool thing to say, I am in Innovate Salon, or I am in Innovate Kenya, because other young people see that you're creating change. You're not just talking about it, you're actually creating something that's adding value to your life and that's adding value to the life of other people in your community. And so there is the social impact. There's the idea that this is cool, this is the cool thing to do, this is what's in. It's about action, it's about being of service. With regards to the alumni, and directly to Melania's question, last year in Sierra Leone, the finalists that we engaged with, we still continue to engage with many of them. In fact, we chose 5 finalists from Sierra Leone this year and continue to support one of them again. So we have funded 6 teams this year, and the team that we are funding this year is a group of students who built a farm last year in their school, which they used to feed themselves and their community. But their farm has now expanded to many acres of land, and they are cultivating many more plantation and many more different vegetables and food, which they're also making available. So again, indirectly, we had a fellowship program last year where we had 3 fellows within Sierra Leone, and 2 of those fellows directly we're working with people who we're working with teams of students who were part of our finalist team last year. And so much more directly, we have a team that was looking at using cultural products, that was selling cultural products, and we have one of our fellows who is hoping to expand that initiative as well. We also have a team from last year that was looking at radio programs and how to bring education via the radio. And so we are supporting those teams directly.
Thanks, David. I see a question from Mario. Hi, Mario. The question is, what will be the steps to start Innovate Paraguay? Who will be the point person? And I think just on a follow-up question to that, is GMin limited to Africa, given that you've expanded to Cape Town and Kenya this year, or are you open to accepting interest from other parts of the world? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Maybe Jacob.
Yeah, so the first thing you need to do is to shoot us an email and say, hi, I'm interested in hosting Innovate Challenges. As I said, we're always interested in engaging with new people that want to host Innovate Challenges. And we're really trying to give as much support as we can to people that want to work with us. We work with a very sort of loose franchise model where we allow people to, we want people to succeed in doing what we're doing in their local community. We don't want to come in from the outside and say, this is how you do things. So sort of the same mentality that we bring into our competitions, also have that in our organization. So we're currently looking at ways that we can assist people, and we are actually developing a very comprehensive plan that people can follow. But the first thing would be to email us, and then we'll get the conversation going, and we'll figure out what the requirements are, who you are, what your team is, what your scope is, what your goals are, and assist you. And then the conversation goes on from there. And then if everyone's happy, we do it. I mean, and then it's going to be awesome and super exciting in Paraguay. And that also answers the second question. We're not only focusing on Africa. Africa has been our starting line. So the African continent has been our starting line. But we're also very, very interested in expanding abroad. Both Latin America and Europe and North America, as well as Asia, has been on our radar. So there really aren't any limitations. We also believe that this model could work just as well in the US or in Europe as it can anywhere else.
Just to go off Jacob's point for a moment, if you think about it, what we're doing, we're just enabling people to figure out what's going on in their communities, so allowing them to become more aware of their settings, and then, as I said earlier, just empowering them to find solutions in that area. So when you're thinking about where that's applicable, that's almost applicable to everyone, everywhere. So I don't think we have any boundaries towards specific locations. Yes, we've started in 3 different African nations, which has been great, but the coolest thing out of that is each application raises different questions, which gives a bit of a perspective on what the issues are in that region, that area, from the people of that region or area. So just relating to the earlier question, are there specific areas, and following up on Jacob's point, I think what we're doing is applicable to everywhere. We take very different approaches to each region which we're in, which is very important, because it's different connecting with different individuals culturally. I know as a group we've all been to different cultural backgrounds, and you have to approach things a little bit differently. So in terms of where we could have these challenges, where we want to have these challenges, very open, and as Jacob mentioned, we're very excited to continue to partner with others, grow with others in the process.
Great, thanks, Desmond. Yes, another follow-up question that I have is a lot of the supporters, for example, including myself when I first started volunteering, first found out about Global Minimum through Innovate Salon. So just in terms of the organizational structure of Global Minimum, how does Innovate Salon relate to Global Minimum, which relates to Innovate Kenya, Innovate the Cape? Jamie, do you mind taking us through what that organizational structure looks like?
Sure thing. So again, I mean, it's of course all virtual, but the way that it's connected right now is that we have sort of the global team, the global GMin team, you can say, that works in these general projects and the general concept that is Innovate and in challenges and in labs and all these different products that we have, innovation products. And then we have the country teams, and the country teams then interact with the global teams in order to, and they of course they have autonomy, so they implement the project in the best possible way because they're on the ground, they know what's happening, they know what a good project looks like in Sierra Leone, and then the global team interacts with all these different country teams in order to learn from those and let any local innovations of the innovation competition, also any changes to it that proved useful. If the global team is then saying, oh, you know what, this might actually work other places as well, then we can connect those up with other country teams and ask, oh, here's a good idea from Sierra Leone, do you want to try this in Kenya or in Paraguay or wherever it might be? And if it then proves useful, then we can sort of let that innovation of our own product actually bubble up into the generic version, so it becomes part of the standard framework that we present to new partners. And so that's sort of the relationship there. We do have a couple of flagship projects where GMin works more closely with, and then we have other projects where we really want them to run the project completely autonomously, more or less, and we then offer all the support that they want, but it's not strictly mandated. So that's kind of how it works. That it's more of a collaboration where we assist each other, and the global team can provide certain things that make it easier for the country teams to execute their projects. But it's ultimately they have autonomy to do the best version of the project that makes the most sense in their specific country.
Thanks, Jamie. I have a question here from Elena. What has been the most helpful strategies to recruit and engage volunteers and potential partners on the ground when trying to start a local in challenge? I would love to pose this question to David, Jacob, or Grant, who have experience starting an Innovate Challenge on the ground. What have been some of your strategies that you've used?
Okay, I'm happy to start with that. So in Cape Town, we really just reached out to our friends. We reached out to our friends at the University of Cape Town and in our local networks, and our friends of friends who are interested in innovation. But so this is something that was specific to, since I grew up in Cape Town, I knew people here. Jacob didn't grow up in Nairobi, so he'll have radically different strategies, which he'll share with you just now. But it's really just talking about it, and often I found a lot of the people that ended up joining us just ended up joining through us talking about what we do with our friends completely naturally and organically. They got excited about it and jumped on board. Jacob?
Yeah, so I think I'm actually going to echo a lot of what Grant says. It's really, for me, a question about being very, very passionate about what you do. And when you talk to people and ask if they want to give a hand, they're more than often willing to, and then they get engaged, then they get more engaged, and suddenly they're on board your team. And then they know someone who can help you. A lot of my friends, they don't want to get actively involved, but they really love the idea and love to help out. So they continuously put me in touch with other people that they hear who wants to do something that's similar. And I really think that a good strategy is simply just talking about what you do, sharing with friends, asking for advice often, and then often someone knows someone who can help you out.
And to maybe add onto that, I think what I've gotten to learn is that if something is cool, other people want to be part of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so you want to make sure, I mean, if it is cool to do good, if it is cool to do good well, and you're having fun in the process that you're using, and people will see that. In many ways, the best way to get people to join your team is you have to show how much you're enjoying it, is you have to show how cool it is to do this work you're doing, and really not like tell. If you're using all your energy to tell, you could be using that energy to show how awesome the work is, to actually live and embody what it is that you're trying to get people on your team to do. And so really in the beginning of this, it's about getting people who have that same energy, who can demonstrate that same energy in the work that they do, and you will find more and more people who are passionate about the goals that you're trying to achieve.
Any other platforms that you use besides word of mouth? I feel like I'm hearing a lot of close networks that you've used to spread the word and passion about in challenge. Have you guys tried using other platforms or innovative platforms that would allow you to disseminate what you do in the countries?
Right. So in Sierra Leone specifically, and in 2012, one of the people who really championed this, Mahmoud Javumbo, who was the head of operations there, and I and a colleague from the Media Lab will go from town to town and be on every radio. So radio in many parts of the world still remains to be a dominant way of reaching people, especially the ones that in the cities. And so it's about having that airtime on radio. Is quality, is a way of reaching people far and wide. And again, once you're on radio, you can have whatever airtime. It's about what you say on the radio too. But using radio to reach out to a lot of people in many of the communities where we work has been useful. When it comes to funding, right? So volunteering does not just involve people who are putting in work, as Jacob kind of mentioned, that some people don't want to do the work per se. But you can pick people's brains, you can engage with them, and they can share resources with you. And so just by for us, we have found that we use Facebook a lot and engage with people online who also then help with crowdfunding. And I think maybe, Ellie, we're going to talk about crowdfunding, but that's one of the ways in which we've been able to raise significant amounts of funding to support the projects that we do is through crowdfunding, which is mostly based online.
Thank you, David.
And just to add to that quickly, now, if you're in Paraguay or if you're anywhere in the world, you often find that the circle of people working on innovation with high school students or with any level of university students, or you'll find the world it's a small world. So once you into the network, you'll immediately find that you'll get referred on to people that are doing similar things to you. So for example, we've met R Labs, 2050, and always 88 MPH, and all these organizations that are doing similar things to what we are doing, and who we can help and who can help us. And we met them through just doing internet research and sending them an email, and or talking to someone in the innovation space, and then telling us, our labs are exactly who you need to talk to. So once you enter the, I think Jacob mentioned earlier, once you enter the network, the rest of the network opens up to you pretty quickly. So if you want to meet people, it really just takes finding that first person often.
Yeah, I think just continuing off, talking about strategies that are not based on networks. One example we did in Kenya was we needed some outreach fellows, some volunteers. So we simply posted a job description on a local Kenya job posting website. And in the span of a week, we got 150 applications, something for people, high school graduates or students that genuinely believed in what we do in GMin and want to dedicate their time as a sort of unpaid internship. And that was a great and very effective way of getting really, really motivated, really, really cool people to volunteer some time, and also our work with.
I think Jacob is.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. So it seems like he used your job post. Jacob, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Sorry, we lost you for the last few comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Moments. What were you saying about the job listings and the applications that you received? Yeah.
Yeah, I said so. In Kenya, we posted a job posting for an internship, like entrepreneurship, online, and got over 150 applications in a week. And then interviewed 10 people, and we engaged 5 that worked as our outreach team. They'd go out to schools and do presentations, and also they added a lot of value to us as well. I mean, we learned so much from working with them, and it was very exciting. But that's an effective way you can, in some instances, reach out to the volunteer network. Just go through normal job channels, because there are people out there looking for a great experience. If you don't have, the social network or find the right people through that.
Great, thank you so much, Jacob, Grant, and David. I often get questions regarding financing. So how do Global Minimum finance its operation and projects on the ground? And David, you alluded a little bit about using crowdfunding, for example, as an innovative way to fund our projects. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And just because I think it's a unique way of fundraising, and what are your thoughts, potentially Desmond, regarding how do we sustainably finance projects going forward? And I'll add on to that as needed as well.
I think it's easy for people to, the easy way out of not doing something is to say, oh, there's no money. Now, it is a real challenge, it is a real problem, but it's easy, right? So if you engage with somebody and they say, I have an idea, I really think it would be cool to do X, Y, and then you're like, okay, so why are you not doing it? And then the first thing is, well, usually I don't have money. I want to find money. So money is real and money is important. We're not belittling the importance of money, but money has never really been a limitation for the projects that we do. Not because we are wealthy, we're not. But say to start with Innovate 2012, when we realized that this is something that we needed to do, this was what was important, this was what we were passionate about, many different members of our team will give $100, $200, $500, and we were able, from just amongst the many of us, to accumulate significant money to bring it to somebody to say, look, we've raised this money anyway from amongst ourselves, by sacrificing the plane tickets to go somewhere for a holiday, which I dedicate to this project that I'm passionate about, as the primary source of funding. Whilst it is not everything that's needed to do any project, it is a basis on which you can get other people to buy in. So the first source of funding any project really has come from internally. It is very small, but that's the first. We put our monies and our hearts and our enthusiasm in projects that we believe in, right? And then we take that to other partners, to our institutions, our companies that we work with, our schools, our classmates, our friends on public media and social media have been able to help in as well. And in Sierra Leone, there was money from companies locally, right? We have been able to do projects where we to go on the radio. It's significant. You can reach a lot of people, but you don't necessarily have to pay for that, right? You can get that be a contribution from the radio people. You can get contributions from the newspaper, right? There are different elements of enabling you to do your project that can be in-kind contribution from other people. So the in-kind contribution has also been very, very, very useful. And we get talented people and volunteers who can review documents that we have, who can work on different initiatives. Has also been great. And then as our partners, right? So like the foundation, Seagull Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative, Autodesk, our foundation, and everybody who we've mentioned have been useful in making sure that we reach those initiatives. So it really is the individuals, us, ourselves, our immediate networks, friends, family, and then using that to get external funding from other private organizations.
Thanks, David. Desmond, are there any follow-up thoughts?
Well, I agree. I agree with all of that. I think as we're telling people and as people are getting to know what we're doing, people want to be involved. If you think of what we're doing, we're essentially just helping others to help themselves, and people want to be a part of that process as well. Exactly as David said, for our whole concept, we don't want money to be a limiting factor. We want to be able to communicate with other individuals and have them going. However, in terms of funding projects and a few other reasons, we do need a certain amount of money. But then once again, that comes from our greater community. One, it's having volunteers, having members, having board members all collectively write grants, reach out to different organizations, because as great of things that we're doing, you do have to publicize yourself and reach out to different organizations to a certain extent. So grant writing is one element of it. Secondly, once again, relating to community, as David mentioned, in Sierra Leone, in Kenya, in South Africa, as we get out there, people want to be involved in their community. As the world is changing in itself, and it's easy to connect with different cultures all over the world, there's still this sense of community which people feel really attached to. So getting funding through the community is also a big element. And then from a NGO organizational standpoint, we do try to keep things tight and try to make the best use of every dollar to what extent that we could use it. So it's being very smart in how we're planning and how we're doing things so that we're not wasting money along the way. It's hard for an organization like this. We're not really selling a product or something like that. So we have to be very innovative in how we actually figure out our financial strategy. So it's multi-tiered, and it's something that we continue to work on. But it's exciting as we know that people want to get involved in the whole process.
Great. Thank you so much, Desmond. And that leads me to kind of final thoughts as we wrap up the board meeting. In order to continue with the pace of expansion that we achieved this year and to kind of continue to evolve our innovation framework within the organization, we are targeting to raise about $1 million in 2014 in order to achieve this. And we are currently running a 100K campaign on CrowdRise, which the link is up on our Facebook and Twitter. So one way that you can immediately contribute is to help us share and together raise 100K by the end of this year. Another way to get involved is through volunteering globally as well as locally. So there is if you go to our website, under Get Involved, there is a volunteer form that you can fill out to let us know your interests as well as the skills and how you want to get involved. And also just simply to follow us on Facebook and Twitter with all our updates in 2014. And with that, with those last thoughts, I just wanted to thank all of you for supporting us in 2013, and we are really poised to make 2014 even better than 2013. So please stay connected, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Andy.
Bye. Bye from South Africa.
Bye from Denmark.
Bye from BC.
Bye from BC.
Bye from the internet. I'm globally present.
Exactly.